Welcome in. This is it. Masters Week live chat. 19 months in the making. Come on in. Drop the questions. I'll get through as many as I can. Lots of stuff already on the docket. This live chat, as always, brought to you by our friends over at Jock Market, which we will dedicate a few minutes to here in a little bit. Things are getting wild on Jock Market. There is a big cash market this week. NFL is in full bloom. I mean, it's awesome over there. Seems like they're getting a lot more users, which is always good to see. The plan for this live chat, I'm going to go through as many questions as I can. We'll cover the weather, obviously a big storyline for this week. Going to cover any changes, any ownership throughout the week, and also keep in mind, I am also going to be live on the First Cut podcast live stream. That is tonight at 7 Eastern with Mark Immelman, Kyle Porter. They're on the scene. So if you have any questions about specific conditions from the grounds, I'll try to save those for those guys later. Let's take a couple of questions here at the top. We'll rattle through a handful of these, then we'll switch over to ownership and weather, and we'll see what's going on. Ryan C., first question, thoughts on Answer this week? I think the case for Answer is that he always seems to find a way to compete, right? Whether it's a major, whether it's a WGC, he seems to be asserting himself into, the first page of the leaderboard, top 15 situations. The concern about Answer, and this is kind of condition related, is if the fairways are as soft as they might be, if this course plays as long as the anecdotes that we're getting out of Augusta National are, then I think it's going to be pretty tough for him to really contend around here. I think it's just a very narrow path for him. I love the way he competes. I love the way that he always figures out a way. I just don't think he's a top tier play this week. Hank Hill wants to know about Jason Day, and he's thinking about being overexposed on Jason Day. Do I have any more insight on him? Love the content. Okay, appreciate it. Thank you, Hank Hill. So here's what I'll do. I'll flip over to my site here, RickRunGood.com, and we can go to the strokes gain database, because I think Jason Day is worth a deeper dive. If you're just looking at the results, his finishing position, it looks a lot worse than it is. And we talked about this we've talked about this for a couple of weeks. The CJ Cup, where he it shows up as a missed cut or a withdrawal. He withdrew on Sunday inside the top 10. He was gaining nearly 9 strokes. He was like second in the field in strokes gained tee to green. He didn't even finish the final round. So I think just looking at the results, it looks a lot worse than the strokes gained metrics actually are. He's been a bit volatile, but what he offers is when things go well, he's very likely to be like top 5 in the field in strokes gained tee to green, which is obviously a very critical stat. And if he can roll a hot putter for a couple of days, he's certainly going to put himself in contention. So I'm certainly okay with being a bit overexposed on Jason Day. Dragon Bros wants to know, how much do you focus on ownership when constructing your cascading core? So the core cascading method is something you can go to, youtube.com/RickRunGood. It's scroll down into the playlist. There's a thumbnail with Patrick Cantlay that describes the core cascading method. It's a very high risk, high reward strategy. Because of that, Dragon Bros, I usually don't consider ownership. The reason is you're going to make 20 lineups in this core cascading method, and 16 of them are going to have the same 6 golfers. So you're going to have you're going to be significantly overweight on the 6 golfers that you have, and then when you make those swaps, you'll probably be underweight on those guys. So you don't really have to consider ownership all that much, because even if a guy's 30% owned in the contest, you're going to have like 85% of him. So you're going to out chalk the chalk, for example. So I usually don't consider it. I more just consider, if I'm leaving any money on the table, if I can make swaps up instead of just making swaps down, that would be one thing that I consider, and just trying to make the absolute best core that I can. Scotty Scheffler or Jason Kokrak? We can look at some of these guys. In a vacuum, I think it still has to be Scotty Scheffler, right? I really love what Jason Kokrak has been doing. He's $7,000 on DraftKings, but I mean, Scotty Scheffler, 7,800. I think that's a great value. I think it still has to be Scotty here, as much as I love Kokrak. You know, you're talking about a guy who looked like he was turning the corner coming back from his COVID break. T17 at the Zozo. He had 2 really good rounds in Houston. He had 2 really poor rounds in Houston. But Augusta National is a place you can make some birdies, right? You're going to offset them with bogeys. You can make an eagle or 2. Scotty Scheffler, certainly one of the golfers that I think might be able to outperform his finishing position pretty significantly thanks to the fantasy scoring. Hey, Rick, great content. Any advice if I should consider ownership in my 10-person home league? We do a single entry for each major. Probably not. I think your next point about it being difficult to predict is the right one. If you're doing it for every major, you might have a lot of people who are only tuning in during majors. They might think Jordan Spieth is a really good play this week. I would imagine that thinking about ownership is probably overthinking it. Thoughts on Tony Finau? Let's go look at Tony, and his chances of winning, more specifically from Dakota. I don't think he has a great chance to win. We have seen historically he hasn't been able to close it out. Even this run of golf at the end of last year where wasn't he the 54-hole leader? Didn't he have a lead on Sunday at the Memorial? He finished 8th. I mean, he just puts himself in contention over and over again. Hasn't been able to close it out. Do I think the first time he's really going to close it out after that 2016 Puerto Rico Open Championship? Do I think that he's going to close it out here at Augusta? Probably not. Tee to green, he's going to be great. He's going to rely a lot on the putter, which is a bit scary. So I would say Tony Finau has a, 4% chance to win this. It's not bad. It's not bad considering some of the other guys. It's just Bryson has a 10% chance to win this. He's not going to win it 90% of the time. So 4% is not all that bad. I love this question from Ralph. Ralph says, give us a guy that you were interested in earlier this week and have backed off since. That's a great question. Obviously, things have certainly evolved, and when ownership comes out, it kind of skews some of my thoughts a bit more. I think the answer to this question, someone that I was probably hotter on Sunday night into Monday and not so much anymore, is Hideki. So Hideki Matsuyama is 8,700. He's checking in as one of the handful of guys that's projecting to be over 20% owned. Him and Tony Finau right next to each other. He's coming off that second place finish in Houston last week, but let's look at how he actually did it. And I think he gains like 4 strokes putting. Yeah, 4.5 strokes putting at the Houston Open last week. So if we sort this by Hideki's best putting performances in the last 6 years, it's basically his 6th best putting performance. So I think very unlikely that he has another great putting week. And now I see his ownership, and I wonder if that's just a situation that I want to avoid. So Sunday into Monday, I was probably a little bit higher on Hideki. As ownership came out, probably off on this. Also, are we betting on Bryson to miss the cut? So let me make this very clear, because I've tried to describe that I think Bryson is intentionally trying to open up his range of outcomes, right? He is trying to take on a lot of risk, and that could work. If it works out very well, I think he wins this by multiple shots. If it doesn't, I think it goes very wrong. The thing that's biting me in the butt right now is, so I went on the Golf Digest podcast this week, and they do a segment called they call it Spicy Nugs. It's like, give us your spiciest takes. And my spicy takes were like, a first timer wins it, and then also Bryson misses the cut. And the idea was to just give something that has a pathway, right? And my idea was that Bryson has a larger pathway to missing the cut than other top players. Dustin Johnson, Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, Jon Rahm, for example. And the reason for that is because of the aggressive style he's going to take this week. I don't really think any of those guys are going to miss the cut, right? It's 50 and ties in a 93-man field with a bunch of past champions in it. These are the elite of the elite guys. So I'm not actually sure you should be putting a monetary wager on it. I just wanted to describe Bryson's trying to open up his range of outcomes, and his pathway to a miscut, I think, is larger than others in similar price ranges. That's really all I was getting at. But I guess it's good for social engagement. Those guys are getting, I'm getting scorched on Instagram for that. Jared wants to know, where is the status of Matthew Wolff's game at this point? Any inside information? So I don't. I can check in with Kyle Porter and Mark Immelman. Maybe they saw him play a practice round today, so I'll check in with them at 7 p.m. Eastern time live on the First Cut Pod on the live stream. And my hunch is that this is what usually happens, right? So what Jared is speaking about is Matthew Wolff over his last 2 starts has been terrible with his driver, losing the 2 largest amounts of strokes off the tee in his career. Now, usually what happens is if a guy is struggling with the best aspect of his game and a part of his game that is much better than a lot of other guys on tour, and you give him a couple weeks off, like he hasn't played since the end of October, they usually figure it out. So that's what I'm kind of relying on. I cannot imagine he's going to lose another 3.5 or 4.5 strokes off the tee this week at Augusta National. I'm going to assume he's going to figure it out. I mean, he's only lost strokes off the tee. I mean, he's only lost more than 2 strokes off the tee 4 times in his career, and 2 of them have been in his last 2 starts. I think he figures it out. I'll see if I can get any inside information on that later. In a vacuum, the guy who probably should have won last year and has a major in the last 2 years is coming off a solid week, and in some places 125. Oh, I know where we're going with this. Why not Molinari is the question from Tyler. And I guess the reason is we just haven't seen him play all that much, right? I mean, on the PGA Tour in measured events, he's played twice since the restart. So that was since March. He missed the cut at the Shriners, and he actually did play well, gained strokes in all 4 categories at the Houston Open. I'm probably in the wait and see category. I mean, I just don't know what to, and even though, and let's also remember, he hasn't played a bunch, and even when he was playing after the Masters last year, he was pretty poor. So we're like going on 20 months or 19 months of lackluster play from Frankie Molinari. So I guess that would be the reason that no one's really, I don't think, strongly considering playing him. Biggie asks, overall thoughts on Jordan and Phil. Both suck right now, but if they're going to figure it out anywhere, it's here. Both have course history and played well here last year. Yes. Certainly course history here more than other places is critical. And we've seen that year in and year out. A lot of guys either have success here or they don't. So I get it. I think that's all good. The issue is there's just no evidence, right? And I mean, you could throw Tiger Woods into this mix as well. There's no evidence that they're playing well at the moment. Phil's been a disaster in nearly every single aspect. Phil is losing strokes, off the tee a ton. He's losing strokes on approach. He's losing strokes with the putter. I mean, just it's whack-a-mole right now. And the same goes for Jordan Spieth. He used to have at least a year or two ago the magic putter to rely on. Even that's not there. He's losing strokes putting in 4, 5, 6, 7 of his last 9 starts. Did I count that up right? I mean, it's been really ugly. So there's just really no evidence that trio of guys is going to have success here. 80s and stuff asks, winning score prediction. Good question. So no one's ever shot 4 rounds in the 60s at Augusta National. I think 5 of the last 9 years, the winning score has been in single digits. If it plays softer, that could mean it plays longer, but also is more receptive. So I will say winning score is 11 under par. And I think that might be high. I think 9, 10, 11, that's a good range. I'll take 11 under par. Graham asks, have there been any rumblings of a Masters committee pushing up tees to have more players contend this week? I fear with rain, a rain-soaked course, only 10 or 15 players can actually win. So what I'm very interested to find out from the grounds later this afternoon and this evening is so Augusta National has this sub-air system, right? They can remove moisture from the ground, take it out of there. I don't know if that system is throughout the entire course or if it's just around the greens. There was a report today that they are pumping it right now. So they are going to try to, obviously with rain in the forecast all week, I don't know how much they'll be able to maintain this. They're going to try to keep this not soaked, right? As dry as possible. Well, I guess it's yet to be seen how dry that actually is. I don't know if they'll push up tees. You know, the Augusta National Committee, I mean, this course plays relatively similar every year. I mean, there are traditional pin positions. There's kind of traditional yardages. I would be surprised if they did something drastic, quite frankly. So I don't think so, Graham. We'll see if we can find anything this afternoon. Real quick, let's talk about Jock Market. So I've been talking about Jock Market for a couple of weeks, maybe a couple months at this point. Happy to now have them on and sponsoring. I see them taking off. I saw they were being talked about on a couple of other podcasts this week. This is stock market DFS, right? This is buying stock in golfers in either a free contest or in an actual cash market, which is beyond bonkers. It's unbelievable. You know, I've been tweeting out the last couple of weeks, you know, after the second round. Oh, here's a guy I have 10 shares of. Should I buy or sell? Should I hold or sell? And, you know, I had Bubba a couple of weeks ago. That worked out really well. I think it was Jason Day was the one that I tweeted out. And it's just something really fun to follow along with. And of course, there's another cash market for the Masters. And with the way that the field is comprised, with only 93 golfers, with only, with 50 and ties making the cut, I think that sets up well for a lot of money-making opportunities. And the way that the bids are set up, like it's almost hard to lose on Jock Market at the moment. It would be like getting in to some of these other fantasy sites, 6 months in or something like that, when it was a lot easier. Some of the feedback that I get are people just absolutely are smoking this site. So I'm just kind of scrolling through this right now and trying to find some of these buy low candidates. We talked about Jason Day and how he could be better on this week than he is on paper. He's $1.99 right now. That's his share price, $1.99. If he wins this golf tournament, that final share price will be $25. So if you can get him for a couple bucks, grab 10 shares, convert it into $25 a share, you're talking about a significant obviously return on your investment. Past champion Patrick Reed's $1.75 right now. Hideki Matsuyama $1.75. Patrick Cantlay's down here. This will obviously go up. IPO just opened up. It'll end tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern time. But look at this. Xander Schauffele's $1.55. Brooks Koepka's $1.60. There is going to be a ton of value, especially in a week where so many great players in the field are playing well. All of these guys have a large chunk of the win equity. You can already see the sentiment a little bit. And this kind of helps with ownership too. I mean, the sentiment on Bryson. Bryson's the most expensive golfer right now. He's been bid up to $5.95 at the moment with Jon Rahm and Justin Thomas right behind him. So if you want to get in on this, now's the time. There is a deposit bonus. I have the information at the top. Just take a screenshot, deposit and take a screenshot of this page. Tweet it at me, tweet it at Jock Market, and they'll add another $10 into your account, which is free money. And everybody loves free money. Okay. Where was I? Brady asks, found a line that's interesting. Abel Gallegos plus 315 matchup versus Augustine. Oh boy. I got to tell you, I don't know a lot about either one of these guys. You quote their world amateur rankings here. It does feel like a lot of juice, especially in a sport that is as volatile as golf. But Brady, I will recuse myself. I don't know a lot about either one of those guys. Blake wants to know, I know distance is the number one correlated stat, correct? So that's using the last 12 years of data on RickRunGood.com. I run a regression model. Driving distance is number one. Is it so important that you can eliminate the bottom 50% in driving distance? Interesting. Let's see who that would be. Let's just sort by driving distance here. I'm just going to kind of go down halfway. Man, you'd get rid of Webb, Morikawa, Cam Smith, Adam Hadwin, Terrell and no, I'm not willing to eliminate the bottom half, but I will say this: if you're not in, let's call it the top 50% or whatever, we'll go with that. If you're not in that, you better have elite skills in other places. So Morikawa is the perfect example, right? He's not necessarily short by any means, but his skill set is likely to hit a lot of fairways, and he's one of the best iron players in the world. So I wouldn't want to just blindly rule him out because of that. And the fact that he's going to be like 5% owned or 4% owned is going to be pretty wild. So no, I see where you're going with this. I'm not going to blindly rule out anyone there, Blake. Tyler says, why haven't we said, talking about Webb? Oh, Webb almost won last year. Why haven't we seen it? I mean, we can talk about Webb. I'm probably not going to be in on Webb this week as much as I would like. Webb to me is one of the most underappreciated golfers on the PGA Tour. He's absolutely phenomenal. From fairway to green or fairway through green is what I've always been quoting. My concern is the distance, right? His one weakness might be exasperated this week. Is that the right word? That might not be the right word, but he might be really exposed with lack of distance this week. If the greens or if the fairways, are soft, they're not getting that roll. It is playing longer. He's now hitting longer clubs in. It's just, I think it's kind of a sticky situation. I also want to talk about waves in a second. So let me roll through a couple more of these. Let me see. Paul wants to know, surprised to see you eliminate anyone under 6,600 in your potential player pool. You really think Tyler, Duncan, JT Poston, Howell, Glover are unplayable? I don't think they're unplayable. I just don't think that I will be rostering them in any significant way, right? I mean, JT Poston, who's coming off a top 20 last week, he's played well recently. He's 6,300. I don't know what the upside is for him. Maybe it's a top 10. I don't know. I don't think that there is as much of a it's almost like opportunity cost, right? I don't know if there's as much in the $200 or $300 that you're saving to get down to JT Poston that I actually think a Munoz, a Corey Connors, a Lonto Griffin, even a Kevin Na, like how much of their top 10 equity that they might have. Kevin Na is so strange because he's literally on Instagram sending out pictures and being like, my back kind of hurts, which is like, oh, he's killing me. It's absolutely craziness. Cal asks, starting on 10 versus starting on 1. Okay, so I believe that starting on 1 is the advantage. Mark, and I'm taking that straight from Mark Immelman, who knows Augusta National much better than the rest of us. He firmly believes you want to get through. You don't want to have to start, especially in the morning, especially if it's going to be a little cooler. I don't want to say colder. It's not going to be frigid by any stretch of the imagination. But Mark seems to believe that playing that stretch of 10, 11, 12, 13 first is tough. And I agree. I'm going to go with Mark. I have no reason to doubt that. Those are statistically some of the more difficult holes that we get. I think you want to play 1 first. So that's me. And Mark, I guess, is really where that's coming from. Can you talk a little bit more about your favorite 9K guys on DraftKings? Sure. Having trouble narrowing it down. So here's the 9K range. It's Xander Schauffele to Bubba Watson. So I can tell you who I've ruled out. So I've ruled out Tiger, unfortunately. There's just little evidence he's going to contend. I've unfortunately ruled out Webb. That one hurts my heart. I really like Webb a lot. And I've kind of ruled out Brooks Koepka because of the 8 strokes he gained in short game last week. It was one of his best putting performances of his career. I'm still concerned about how he's actually hitting the ball, and I think he catches a lot of steam because of that 5th place finish last week. So I've kind of ruled those guys out. Xander, I don't think we need to talk about. Xander's a fine play. He's going to be popular. He's going to be great. I do think now that ownership has come out, looking at Morikawa at 9,500 being potentially 5% owned, wow, that's crazy. I mean, this guy won a major championship 2 majors ago, right? He won the PGA Championship. He's got 3 wins in 35 career starts. I like what Morikawa's game is turning into, which is a bit more volatile. I think I mentioned this at some point this week. Not just trying to make the cut, right? Not just trying to keep the cut streak alive, trying to win golf tournaments. And sometimes you miss the cut because of that. I don't think there's a huge miscut risk. Knock on wood, Justin Rose would disagree with me. Sergio Garcia, Paul Casey would disagree with me. But there's not a huge miscut risk for a lot of these top guys at the Masters being top 50 in ties. There is no 10-shot rule this year, so that changes it a little bit. But I think Morikawa's upside with just absolutely tiny ownership is phenomenal. I mean, Morikawa and Fleetwood coming in at around 5%. That's bonkers stuff. Who would I be rooting for this weekend with no money on the line purely as a fan? Good question, Lucas. The easy answer is Tiger. I think Rory completing the career Grand Slam would be awesome. Only 5 guys have ever done that in the history of golf. I think that would be awesome. I think Bryson would be for all the clicks, right? Like for content, Bryson winning would be the best for the industry. But I think here's the dark horse. If Jordan Spieth won, we are really lucky to have a lot of guys, a lot of the top players in the world playing well right now. Bryson, JT, John Rahm, Rory's been okay. Dustin, Xander. If Jordan Spieth was good, it would be awesome for the game. So if he found himself in contention, I would make no money off of it, but I think it would be pretty interesting. Hey, Rick, can you answer if your software works well on Android? So it is much better on bigger screens. I am not a developer by trade. So like the smaller the screen, I build in visualizations. I don't code. So the smaller the screen, the more difficult it gets, especially with how much data I have pumping into these visualizations. So it's much better on a tablet, a laptop, or a full screen. Certainly that. I mean, it's on my list to try to make them a bit more mobile friendly. But it's definitely best viewed on a screen here. Rick, you are a fake little princess. Butthurt someone called you out. That guy even gave you praise. Oh, is this because I jokingly banned Sam P? Let me see here. So let's see. Is it hard to take a little heat for your bad picks? So I only ban people. So I jokingly banned the guy who asked about why I banned his friends, but I didn't think I banned him. I just put him in timeout. I'm pretty sure he comes back in like 30 minutes or something like that. So I don't ban people unless you can come on here and talk about the picks. Listen, I try not to give out picks, right? I try to do the data. You make your own decisions. It's your hard-earned cash. I want you to decide how to spend it, not me or anybody else. So we can come on here and talk about bad picks. I do the recap every Monday of how good or bad the fades or the sleepers were. So happy to do that, especially in a volatile sport like golf. I mean, there's going to be a lot of wrong picks, so to speak. But I only ban people from the chat if it's like disruptive. Like if you're spamming the chat and making it harder for me to read the questions and the comments, I don't even know if it's banning you. I thought I was putting you in timeout. So if you've been banned and you want to get back in, I'm happy to figure out a way to unban you. I thought I was just putting you in the corner for a couple of minutes, not actually kicking you out. For a Masters pool, Day or Bubba? Day looks to be less owned, but what are your thoughts on going against the grain with someone like Webb, who's not going to be highly owned? Matt, that depends a lot on the scoring. Right? I mean, do you get penalized if they miss the cut? Is it based on fantasy scoring? Is it based on, the earnings for the week? It's tough to say. I think that you probably don't need to be going to Webb in most situations if that's just what you're trying to do. Okay. Name a guy under 6,500 not named Poston. Oh, I lost my spot. Hold on. Lost my spot. Sorry. Okay, so I think it was a guy under 6,500. Wow, there are a lot of comments in here. Oh boy, hold on. All right, 6,500 and not named JT Poston. Justin Harding. Kind of interesting, right? We've seen him come over and play in a couple of major championships. He was a guy that popped out in the breakout tools that are like he's hitting the ball well, but putting poorly. Now it's a small sample size, but that would be someone. Other than that, man, it's pretty ugly down here. I wouldn't want to play any one of these guys. I mean, Nate Lashley, we've at least seen him get hot at times, would probably be where I go here. That's probably the one person. Rose was one of your fades in your video. Hard to find a guy 10% ownership or less in his price with his pedigree. Seeing if your thoughts have changed since his practice rounds have been positive talk. So Civic Boy, unfortunately, a lot of this, it's like coach speak in football. A lot of practice round stuff is positive. And everybody tells you they're hitting it well, they're putting it well, or they're feeling good. Just like every football coach tells you things are going well coming in. So it's tough to take too much from that. If you're looking for a pivot in the 77, I'm assuming we're talking about this range. So Rose is at 11. I mean, Scotty Scheffler's 1% higher and certainly going to, I think, be in a better situation come Sunday evening. And if not, I think he has a chance to score well. Sung J M, I know it's been really erratic, but seeing him at 2.5% is almost a bit, I don't know, it's almost a bit shocking. You know, I think he's much better than that. Thinking of playing Poulter this week in DFS. Do you like that player? Would you pivot to someone else? Kokrak, for example. Yeah, I mean, I'm on the record being pretty high on Kokrak this week, not only with his win at the CJ Cup, but also the way he backed it up with a T17 the following week. I mean, he's been really good. Let's pull up his numbers here, because this goes much further than just those two starts. So you can see 15th at Wyndham, 13th at Northern Trust, 6th at BMW, top 20 at the U.S. Open. I mean, this is a much longer run for Kokrak than just the last 2 weeks. He hits the ball far. He can run a hot putter. So, yeah, I like Kokrak there. Can you give a couple of reasons to play Brendan Todd and a couple of reasons not to? This is a game I played with Eric Patterson on the 300 yards to unknown pod. It's a good game. Reasons for him: he's a great putter and he hits his long irons well. Reasons not: he's very, very short off the tee and he hasn't played as well recently as he was a couple of months ago. So that's a good game to play. Who do you think you'll have the most exposure to this week? Okay, so let's talk ownership. We'll talk weather here in a second. So I'm going to sort by ownership. Actually, let's sort by salary first and do who I think is going to have, who I'm going to have the most exposure to. On Bryson, I will probably try to match the field. I don't want to take a stance on Bryson. I will I will take my stands in other places, right? So I'll try to match the field on Bryson. I will be overweight on Justin Thomas. He's the guy that I think is, not only is he the lowest owned projected of the 10K guys, but also he is the one that I just think he's going to win. Like I'm just feeling JT. He's getting better every year, leads the field in strokes gained approach and around the green since the restart. He's all around solid. I mean, he's just got to find a decent putter, a lukewarm putter, and he's going to contend. So I'll be overweight on Justin Thomas. I will probably be, at this point, after seeing what Morikawa comes in at, overweight on Morikawa at 5%. It doesn't take much to double the field or even triple the field on Morikawa. I will definitely get there. I will likely be underweight on Tiger. I mean, I know I don't know how much of a stance that is. It's 8%. I won't have that much of him. I will probably be overweight on Bubba at 15. I'll probably be underweight on both of these guys, the two guys that are probably going to be some of the highest owned, Finau and Hideki. Golf's weird. Golf is hard. A lot of things can happen. I don't need to be overweight on a guy who's 20% owned, for example. Kokrak, unfortunately, I will either eat the chalk on Kokrak, or I will try, if I can get there, if I have $300 extra to a Cam Smith, if I can. If not, I might just eat the chalk on Kokrak. I think it's unfortunate that he's at 21%, but hey, it is what it is. Guess on biggest name to miss the cut. Like, Ryan's trying to bait me so hard into this, right? Like do you want me to describe the path for Bryson? That's the bait, right? I've I've been catching heat on Instagram thanks to the Golf Digest guys for this, but I do think of the big names, I don't think it's likely that any of them miss the cut. I think of them, Bryson. He's going to be the most aggressive. He's going to do the craziest stuff. It might go wrong. It might go horribly right, and he might win this by 5 or 6 shots. But I would say, I guess I'd just double down on this. I guess it's Bryson. Outside of that, other bigger names, I still am concerned about Koepka, right? I mean, he has told us that the knee is kind of day to day. It's kind of, sometimes it hurts more than others. It's kind of a grueling walk around Augusta National. I'm a bit concerned about that. And he was a real hot putter. Do you have first round group picks? Oh, let's talk about this. Let's do weather. All right. So this is Weather Underground. Now you can see it. This is Weather Underground. There is rain in the forecast all week long. And lows of, 55, highs of high 70s. Okay. So here is Thursday morning. They're going to tee off here. 95% chance of precipitation. It's going to be about 76-ish degrees, something like that. Wind should lay down, right? Only 4 miles an hour. I believe the wave that you want, and it's my understanding they're going to have to play through this, right? Unless there's lightning, they'll get them off the course. But there is a chance they have to play through this, and it really Thursday afternoon. So you get to the afternoon tee times, and the chance of rain drops pretty significantly, right down into the 20-15%. Obviously, this can change. Obviously, this can be hour by hour. If there's a lightning delay and that moves all the tee times back, or there is a delay at all that stuff changes. So I believe the wave you want is the afternoon wave on Thursday. So they would play afternoon Thursday and then Friday morning. So let me pull up masters.com for this, and we can look through some of those guys. So afternoon on Thursday, I believe to be the best, which would be, and then also if you could start on the front 9. I know I might be asking for a lot, but here we go. Okay, so here's the tee times. So these 8:05, that's 11 a.m. Eastern time guys, right? Because I'm on the West Coast. So, Fowler, Willett, Augustine, they're going off the first tee. Mickelson, Answer, Wiesberger are going off the first tee. I don't necessarily need you going off the first tee. I would just prefer it. Adam Scott, Morikawa, Hatton, JT, Fitzpatrick, Koepka. If JT got the great side of the draw after I'm already on record picking him everywhere, I'd be pretty stoked about that. So JT getting what I believe to be the better end of the wave. DJ, Cantlay, McIlroy, I believe, are getting the better end of it. Rose, Champ, ZJ. So and then the final one would be Perez, Sungjae, and Brendan Todd. So that's the way that I would look at that. That's the way that I'm understanding the weather situation. Obviously, that can change in a blink of an eye. Logan asks, what's your academic background from your vids? It sounds like you have a sound understanding of statistics. Self-taught. I mean, I like math. I've always liked math, and I don't, my background's in business. I do not have a math degree by any stretch of the imagination. Bankroll management question. Would you suggest going really heavy on DK with the number of casual? Okay. So this is a great question. Bernie or Guillotine 2020. So we've never had a Masters during football season. So all of you NFL guys who are thinking, I know a lot about golf, Jordan Spieth, Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, let me throw a lineup in the Millie Maker. I think this is going to be one of the softer fields that you could get, some of the softer contests. Now it kind of gets offset a little bit because the pricing is much softer as well. So you can really make some jacked up, souped up lineups. But it's a really good point. I think people who have been paying attention, doing the research, have a much better option this week. There are so many questions here. I'm going to try to run through these as much as possible. I was not expecting this many. Let me see. Let me find some good ones. A lot of these we've talked about here. Champ at 1% just feels wrong. We can look at Champ because we haven't talked about Champ. I mean, the thing that he has going for him is the driver. Unfortunately, he kind of hits a low driver, which doesn't necessarily play well in terms of carry distance. And we haven't seen, the 8th place finish at Zozo was obviously great, but you're looking at a lot of missed cuts here. You're looking at not being in contention often. You're looking at a putter that one might describe as lost. I guess I should show you this. One might describe as lost here, right? Losing 4, 5, 6 strokes over the course of sometimes even 2 rounds is really, really ugly stuff. I'm wondering if this is going to be too much for him. One and done, best one and done options left are Morikawa, Reed, or Hideki. Depends on your positioning, but I would probably say Morikawa. Who above 8K doesn't have the length at all to be competitive? So again, we're just going to talk about length, right? Because some of these guys have other skill sets that are much better, but I can just show you this is driving distance this season, and we can sort by the 8K range, or we can sort by salary. Guys that are on the shorter side: Jordan Spieth, Tiger Woods, Patrick Reed, Terrell Hatton, Webb Simpson, Colin Morikawa. Some of them have a smaller sample size because this is just this season so far, but those would be the shorter guys. Now, again, some of them can make up for it, right? I think Morikawa, because he's one of the best ball strikers in the game, one of the best iron players, certainly can make up for it. Talked about Morikawa. Imagine, let's see. Balanced lineup over stars and scrubs. So, yes. No, sorry. Stars and scrubs is probably what I would prefer, but that's with the caveat of I don't want to go super scrubby. So if I can get, I'm cool with going Lanto, Munoz, Connors, like that low. That would be that. I'm okay with 2 of those guys, even Siwoo Kim, like 2 of those guys, and then trying to get 2 guys over, I don't know, 9,500 or so would be the way that I would take it. Let's see. Thoughts on Lowry? Yeah, so Lowry he's certainly gaining steam in my mind, right? I mean, he was someone that after winning the Open Championship, almost fell off the face of the earth. Now, what we're starting to see right here, kind of starting at Memorial, him starting to figure the ball striking out a little bit, right? He's gaining strokes in, 7 of 9 tournaments. Now, the around the green game can be a bit concerning. The putter can be hit or miss, but he is definitely trending in the right direction. Not ready to, crown him, not ready to run to the window, not ready to roster him in a bunch of things, but it's tough. Let's see. We talked about a lot of these. Talked about Molinari revenge factor. Sure. Thoughts on Brendan Todd. Talked about him a little bit earlier. Most shares you have on DK in the mid to low 7K range. So let's go to the mid to low 7K range. The 2 standouts are certainly Cam Smith and Jason Kokrak. I definitely have the most shares of those 2. I have been willing to forgive and forget Lee Westwood, who has great history at Augusta National and missed the cut last week. And outside of that, he's been, top 30 almost everywhere in the world that he's played. So those 3 are certainly eating up a lot of my ownership in the 7K range. Justin Thomas is the best iron player in the world and still slept on at a second shot course. Preach, Brian. Yeah, preach. I love it. Right? Let's go to the Holy Grail. Let's go to everybody since the restart. And we can go longer than the restart if you want. I just think it's a natural starting point. Players in this field since the restart. JT, number 1, outside of John Augustine, but he has two rounds. We're not going to count that. JT, number 1 in approach by a pretty significant margin. JT, number 1 around the green if we get rid of the small sample size guys, right? I'm shocked by it. I'm shocked by it. Let's see what else we have here. No jock market on Android. I'm on the waiting list. I wish I had an update for you. I'll have to talk to those guys. I will get on jock market right now if you give me your thoughts about Lowry. I just did, so I think that counts. He's trending in the right direction. Appreciate the support. What do you think about Fitz? We can talk about Fitz. Let's talk about him. Let's go to his... Here's a name we haven't chatted about much this week. So let's go see what Matthew Fitzpatrick is up to. So the good thing about Matthew Fitzpatrick is I like how volatile he is, right? You're talking about a third at the Memorial, a sixth at the WGC, a missed cut, then a sixth, then a missed cut, then a 12th. I'm okay with that. As long as you're not trying to put in Matthew Fitzpatrick and say, wow, this is a really safe option. This is a guy that's definitely going to make the cut. I'm okay with embracing this volatility a little bit. The ball striking numbers have been pretty good. And he has like this is scary, right? When you gain 10 strokes in a single tournament or 8 strokes in a single tournament, or you do it back-to-back weeks, that's super scary. But he's kind of righted the ship a little bit, right? I mean, 4 in a row where he's been ball striking in the positive. That's much better than what it was, leading into, call it the Northern Trust. How many shares are available for each golfer? So it is dynamic. This is on Jock Market. So I asked the same question. So they issue the number of shares based on what they think supply and demand is going to be. And then I think it's dynamic with the bidding. Smarter people than me figure that out. It's not, I have no idea, but it's a good amount. What do I think of the tiers tournaments on DK? They're pretty cool. I like innovation, right? It's why I like Jock Market. It's why I like a lot of different things. I think it's good to have innovation. I think it's good to have different options, right? And tiers might be easier for people where I have to pick one of these 3 or 5 or 6 or 8 options, as opposed to having an entire field ahead of you and trying to figure out which 6 you need to get out of there. So I like them. I don't know if the prizes are as big. They might be huge for a major. I'm not sure how big they normally are. Morning start or afternoon start? I believe it is afternoon. I believe it is Thursday PM is the one that you want as of right now. Can I play Bernard Langer? Oh man, doesn't it always feel like he finds a way? Doesn't it always feel like he finds a way to contend? And historically, I mean, you don't have to be long at Augusta National. It's important. It has led to a lot of success, but you don't have to be necessarily long if you know the greens. I think it's a much more narrow pathway, but here's Bernard Langer. So this is last year. So he's made the cut in 3 of the last 4 and in 5 of the last 7, including that top 10 finish a handful of years ago. I think you would be super desperate if you were trying to play, I almost said Lonto Griffin, Bernard Langer. What is good chalk, bad chalk? I saw that one. I saw that one earlier. Good chalk, bad chalk, right? So if someone says somebody's chalk, it means they're going to be highly owned. They're going to be popular. Now there are situations where it's okay to eat that, and there's a reason that they are going to be very popular, right? I mean, if Bryson DeChambeau was 25% owned this week, or projected to be 25% owned, you could argue like, well, yeah, he might be the best player. Or like DJ, for example. DJ's, because the pricing came out prior to the Houston Open, DJ could be really good chalk. Bad chalk is usually cheap chalk, to be quite honest. So there's usually a reason that guys in like the $7K range or the $6,800 range are priced at that, right? And it's because they're not good or they're volatile or whatever. Usually the riskier the player is and the chalkier they are, or the more popular they're going to be, tends to be a recipe for disaster over time. So that would be bad chalk. Munoz, Lowry, or Siwoo? I like so I'm a big fan of Munoz just in general, but Siwoo's kind of interesting. Let me show you guys if I can pull this up here real quick. So I was showing you Justin Thomas just a bit earlier, right? And I was showing you how he has been great on approach and around the greens since the restart. So let me do this. So Justin Thomas and Siwoo. So I'll just circle out these two guys. So here is since the restart. Both of them have been positive on approach. Both of them have been great around the greens. They're 1 and 2. They're within like a 15th of a stroke of putting of each other. They've both been great from tee to green. I've been making the case all week that Siwoo is like a discount Justin Thomas with a lot more volatility. He's also like $3,000 cheaper, almost $4,000 cheaper, right? So I like Siwoo in this spot just because of the way that he kind of sets up here. Would you ever bet anyone in this field to miss the cut? I can make a case that Bryson's style, right? I've made that case a bunch this week, is more likely than DJ, for example, to miss the cut. You don't get great odds on that stuff. You really don't get great odds on miss the cut or make the cut for that matter. So no, I probably wouldn't, especially with it's top 50 and ties. They got rid of the 10 shot rule. Top 50 and ties going to make the cut this week. Golf is the best sport in the world for fading lower price chalk. I tend to agree, Jeff. It's just, it's so volatile that it doesn't make much sense to do. Let me go back and see here. There's so many questions. I'm just trying to jump all over the place. A lot of these we talked. Who putts like Bubba and just drips the ball over the hole? Good question. I wish I had a list of defensive putters. So Colby is likely referring to a comment that I made about or that Mark Immelman made about Bubba Watson that I've been telling people is that he's a defensive putter that seems to play well at Augusta National. I wish I had a list of guys. I don't. Talked about Lowry. A lot of questions about Lowry. Lowry's like the new Maverick McNeely. Lee Westwood's come up a lot. I'm ready to forgive and forget on Lee Westwood for sure. The Greens book thing. So, okay. So you can't use a Greens book at Augusta National, right? That's the Greens book thing. So, most places on the PGA Tour, these guys, they're either given to them or they keep it year over year. What the break is, percentages of slope, things like that. And the whole green is mapped out. You cannot use that at Augusta National. Now, if you have acquired one, or what a lot of these guys do is year over year, they create their own and they reference it, but they can't take that out on the course with them. So they can look at the pins on, tonight, Wednesday night, and they can look at the pins for Thursday and they can say, okay, I'm going to memorize these pin locations and look at my greens book and see where all this stuff is going. But they cannot physically take it out there with them. So that's been the big story, especially about, Bryson, obviously, because Bryson seems to rely on that greens book more than most. Will this play similar as it will in April? I think they dodged a bullet in a big way by it not being unseasonably cold, right? I mean, you could have got like 40 degrees in November and August, like for a week, right? I mean, I think they dodged a bullet there. Unfortunately, the wet weather is going to probably wreak havoc. I hope there's no delays. Okay, here's the other thing. So right now, I believe as of this moment, the afternoon wave on Thursday is the best side of the draw. Now, here's the thing. If you're going to stack some lineups on that, you should probably also stack some lineups on the other side, because if they get delayed at all, right? If there is a 4-hour delay at any point on the first 2 days or whatever, that whole thing can flip. And now the morning guys are afternoon guys. And maybe that's now an advantage for them. So I think you really have to remember, especially if you're trying to bank on these waves, it's going to change a lot. Keep that in mind. Bubba or Rory? It has to be Rory, right? As much as I love I like Matt Wolff going into this weekend. So do I. I think he fixes the driver. Group winner, Fitzpatrick, Scheffler, or Louis. Without knowing their odds, I like Scheffler, but Fitzpatrick's kind of sneaky. Greg says there's only 3 afternoon tee times. Yeah, I mean, like, there is an afternoon wave though, right? They start at 11, I think. So the first tee times are, I'm trying to do the time zone conversion in my head. I think the tee times will start at 7 in the morning, and then I think they'll start at 11 in the afternoon. So when I say the afternoon wave, technically not afternoon, but that wave, right? Lonto, yeah, what I like about Lonto is he's cheap, right? Under 7K again, so he fits the flow chart. And then he also, what I like about him is he can hit his irons and he can putt, which is 2 things that can go very well together. I'm trying to find some ones we haven't chatted about. Can we ignore driving accuracy? This has been just, I think Phil said yesterday, it's all first cut. Right? I mean, there's not real thick penal rough out there, right? It's 2.25 inches or something like that. So it's all first cut. Alicia, next time you play golf, will you try to skip the ball over the water? I will need a golf ball sponsor for that because I will lose a lot of balls. I've never even tried it. It's absolutely crazy. There's a lot of questions here. Very good, guys. Let's see. Best underdogs. We can talk about, longer shot guys. Underdogs. I would say, I mean, I'm still living in the Munoz Lonto world. I'm living in the Kokrak world. I'm living in the Cam Smith world. Guys I'm concerned about that are down there. Gary Woodland, I'm worried about. Kuchar, I'm worried about. Brendan Todd, I'm worried about. I mean, those are concerns. Could be wrong. Golf's a volatile sport, but those are concerns. Favorite pivots. Okay, this is a good one. So let me see if I can show you the cheat sheet here because I want to show you ownership. So when you say pivots, we're going to look for highly priced or highly projected owned guys and then pivots around. So I think the pivot in the 10K range is Justin Thomas, right? If you have Rahm, Rory, and DJ all projected to be near or 20% owned, the pivot would be Justin Thomas. Going down to the next tier, looks like Patrick Reed and Bubba Watson are catching a lot of steam. My favorite pivots are, if you can afford it, Morikawa, if he's a couple $100 more expensive, but he's coming in at sub 5%. I would rather hang on to Bubba at 15% than probably go to Adam Scott at 7.5. There's not always a reason to pivot there, just in my opinion. I do think Jason Day in the mid 8K range is better than a lot of people are giving him credit for. He's going to be sub 10K. And then when you go down to the really chalky Jason Kokrak, which I love, my favorite pivot here, if you can afford it, if you have the extra 100, probably Kisner. I'm very concerned about his distance, but he's local to, he's from Aiken, South Carolina, went to the University of Georgia. He can get a hot putter. I don't love it. I mentioned it earlier. I almost want to just eat the Kokrak chalk. That might be bad. It might be really bad, but I just really don't like the guys around him here. So I'm not going to force a pivot. Will no spectators affect Bryson? I don't know if they'll affect Bryson. I do think it'll be weird. I definitely think it helps the first timers who don't know any different about Bryson, right? About the patrons, right? They're going to play for the first time with no fans. I think it's going to be weird for Rory. I think it's going to be weird for Justin Rose and Paul K, like guys who played this a lot, right? All right, couple more. Correlating bombers. Yeah, I'm cool with correlating skill sets. Bryson, Champ, Bubba, Wolf. Yes, I think you should correlate skill sets, whether that is approach players, whether it is bombers. I do like the idea of correlating skill sets. All right. I think that'll do it. Another great chat. That was way more questions than I thought. Apologies. I'll try to go through them quicker in the future. Also, if I have banned you, let me know. I will unban you because I thought I was just putting you in timeout for spamming the chat. I'll unban you. So shoot me a note. Otherwise, if you want to tune in, the First Cut podcast tonight is live stream at 7 p.m. Eastern time on that YouTube channel. Mark Immelman and Kyle Porter will be joining me. And I believe they were both on the grounds today. So they probably saw some practice rounds. They probably saw course conditions. I have lots of questions about that. Really looking forward to chatting with those guys and getting some inside information. Other than that, appreciate it. Good luck. It's Masters Week. Enjoy it. 19 months between Masters. We deserve this one. Enjoy it. And I will talk to you guys later.